feel very far away from all of you, but I guess
I miss you.
I know it's okay. Okay, quick audience poll. Who here has seen Black Panther? Ah, yeah, twice. I saw it twice. So good. Okay, so as many of you are aware, Wakanda, which is the fictional African country. Woo woo! Okay, sorry, I'm still like on the Black Panther train, but
I'm into it.
So, as many of you know, Wakanda is the most technologically advanced society in the world, and who's in charge of it?
Cherie.
A Black woman, and that's what true technological advancement I think could look like if we get more women, especially women of color, at the top. So just wanted to quick shout out to Black Panther, but
Wakanda forever.
all right, so let's just start with intros real quick. If you all just kind of want to go down the line super quickly and just say who you are, which company you work for, and what your role is.
Hi, I'm Camille Fournier. I am not the CTO of Two Sigma. I think my boss would be a little upset if he found out I was playing that. I have been a CTO, though. I was the CTO at Rent the Runway. Before I joined Two Sigma, I run the platform engineering team there.
Camille's dope. I love her. My name is Erica Joy Baker. I am Senior Engineering Manager at Patreon. Before that, I was an engineer at Slack and an engineer at Google.
Hi, my name is Noga Tavor. I've just recently crossed the lines to product, so don't judge. But up until now, I've had a career in engineering and engineering management. Up until like 2 months ago, I was an R&D manager for Jelly Button, which was recently acquired by Playtika. It's basically a casual gaming company.
Camille, you mentioned that you're not the CTO, but that's the position you're going for, though, right?
Well, I have done that job, and I'm very proud of myself for having done it. It was a lot of hard work. It is hard. Being a CTO is a hard job. So while I hope many of you aspire to that job, you know, it's nice to be able to have done it and then take a step away from it and not have to necessarily have all of that responsibility all the time.
Well, let's say people want that responsibility. So how did you get that role of CTO at Rent the Runway?
So I joined Rent the Runway actually as a director of engineering, and you know, it was a little bit of like the right place at the right time. I joined, and there was a lot of leadership changes. And you know, when the person who hired me, who was the VP of engineering, left, you know, I raised my hand and I said, you know, put me in. I think I can do this. And I think, you know, it took a while to convince the CEO that I was really worth calling the CTO of the company. I spent some time as the VP of engineering, the SVP of engineering, but you know, ultimately, after a while, after growing the team, stabilizing the team, doing a lot of great work, I believe, on the architecture and the technology there, eventually they finally gave me the title. I was very proud of myself for having worked my way into that. It was a lot of work, though.
Erica, what's been your experience trying to get to the top?
Oh, it's been interesting. How to say? Challenging, if you will. As you might notice, I'm a Black woman.
What?
And I'm a technical Black woman, and a lot of people question my technical merits because I'm a Black woman. I recall specifically one time I'd done something on the internet like a long time ago when iGoogle was a thing, and it got upvoted on Dig, so that's how long ago it was. And it was on the front page, and the top comment was, a Black woman? Or a Black chick, that's what they called me. They don't say woman online, chick. A Black chick, and that's sort of like indicative of like the experience. You have to, as a Black woman, continue to prove yourself over and over again. And that's like, y'all know that already. The part that I didn't know and only recently learned is that you just don't wait for your manager to recognize that you are ready to be a manager yourself if you are an IC. right? So if you have a manager who's maybe not a great manager and doesn't know how to raise you up, you just do the job of managing yourself. You write down all the things you need to do to get promoted, and then you give it to them. You say, here's what we need to do together, which really means you doing yourself. Yeah, and then if your manager doesn't respond well to that, then you leave and go to a different job with a different manager.
Noga, what about you? What's your experience been like?
So I think one of the things that are confusing at the beginning of your career, that if you've always been a good student, then during your studies you're rewarded automatically. But then suddenly when you're at the workplace, it doesn't happen. The teacher doesn't give you, oh, you've been so well, you have this thing. Why don't you be promoted, It doesn't happen. You have to ask for it. You have to know you have to ask for it. You have to know that you can ask for it when you're not ready for it, like 100%. So I have something that I do now with people that I manage, and they want something. So we say something like, I want to be this, like in 2-3 years. Let's make a plan. Like, this is my sentence. Let's make a plan. I just put a target, and then let's make a plan. And then it's not pushy. It's not like an ultimatum. It's just like, let's build the steps. Let's start doing the part without you taking the risk on me, and then I'll be ready. That's it.
100% agree.
What was that, Eric?
I said I 100% agree. You have to make that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to pause for a second and just throw some stats out there that came from the EEOC 2016 report based on some EEO1 data from tech companies. So at the top 75 ranked Silicon Valley tech firms, only 28% of executives and managers are women, and less than 1% are Black, and just 1.6% are Latinx. So although obviously like the talent exists, there's still, we're not for some reason able to make it up to that next level and cross that barrier. Would one of you like to talk a little bit about why? I mean, I think we all kind of know the answer why, but let's talk about it.
Y'all might know about a spreadsheet that existed at Google. However, there is a different spreadsheet at Google that did not get leaked, but I'll tell you what was on it.
Oh yeah, please do.
Why not? There was, someone had access to HR data, and they were able to plot the careers and tenure of men versus women over time at Google in engineering. And you could see, like, very visibly, men, and they hit level 3, they continue to go up. Women hit level 3 and flatlined, right? And so, it's really indicative of the problem you just mentioned, and I think that's because there was research done at Google. I give them props for doing that research, that women don't promote themselves, but we don't often ask why women don't, put themselves up for promotion, and it's because we get targeted when we do. Oh, she wants too much. And then we get questioned like, oh, what's she after? She's way too ambitious, right? And so like, we don't do that, because if we do put ourselves up for promotion, if we do act like we have ambition, because everybody in this room has ambition, right? If we do act like it, we get penalized for it. And I think that's a problem we need to address in the industry, and I look forward to doing it when I am a CTO.
Yeah, I mean, my experience has been that, like, you have to be, it feels like you have to be so perfect to succeed as a very senior woman in tech. You have to be exactly the right amount technical, and always have to be bringing that technical card out all the time. It still happens to me to this day. I feel like I have proven myself a million times in a technical way, but I still have, I meet men at conferences, and the assumption often defaults to not as technical as in fact I am. And it's very frustrating this many years into my career and this many things that I've done to have to keep doing that. And I think that is a big thing that, holds women back, because we don't, I don't think that most women who are technical and who also want to be in leadership positions and in management positions want to be thought of as just like oh, well, she's really good at the soft stuff. She's really good at the, she cares about people. She's really nice. You get into this mother role sometimes. That's really painful, I think, to be in. Being pregnant while running a team is always a really fun experience, or at least was for me. And you don't want to be like just thought of as like, oh, this is mom, and like she cares about all the people, but she doesn't know anything about the tech. Like that really also ends up holding you back. So the fact that you're default believed to be less technical than your male peers for no reason, and you have to keep proving that over and over again, I think is one of the biggest things that holds women back from the ability to just really get to those leadership roles.
Now, of course, every company is different. So I'd love to hear some of the pros and cons of, trying to move up the ladder within the same company, or maybe, switching companies and maybe entering already at a higher level, if that's possible.
So from my experience, I've done like big corporations like IBM. Any IBMers in the crowd? Yeah, woo. And also little startups. So definitely little companies, startups are much easier to move in, right? Because there's always, like, especially if there's growth, there's always like a vacuum that you can be sucked in just like you had. So there's always opportunity. Like I'm in my startup, which has been acquired, but for the 2 years, and I've moved 3 times, right? Because there was an opportunity and there was growth, and I offered myself, and they wanted it. But then before, like in IBM, everything took time. Like it took time. You knew what your next position was. You should target it, but there's like, if someone's there, you have to wait till it's time, and the process is very organized, and the qualification is very clear, and so that's like heavier. So I think, but on the other hand, if you're in big companies, you do see how things are managed properly, right? So my advice would be to start at a big company, see how it's done right, and then come to a smaller company and have the potential of growth there, but with the knowledge of how to do it, because that's the downside of small companies. They usually are a mess, right?
I think when you start at a bigger company, I think it can be a challenge to find a manager or a team that's a good fit for you. I think so if you do start at a big company and try to follow the manager's path, Camille. Camille wrote a book called The Manager's Path. You should all buy it. But if you're trying to follow the manager's path at a large company, you need to make sure you have someone in front of you who's a leader. And I talk a lot about like my negative experiences at Google, but I had once probably the best manager of my career at Google, and she's somewhere in the audience, Suzanne. I can't see you because there's a lot of lights, but shout out to Suzanne Timmons, who's here. She was someone who I could follow, and unfortunately I had to leave our New York office, but if I were at Google today, like I would be trying to work for her because she's just a good leader and someone who raises up other people. So I feel like that's a good thing to look for when you go to a big company, is try to find that person who will help raise you up.
Camille, what's been your experience?
I mean, I definitely had the experience of going to a big company and having like a reasonable career path there, but waiting. You were waiting for someone to move out of a role, especially if a company's not growing a lot. There aren't necessarily, creating new roles for people who are very ambitious to grow into. And I think I got really lucky going to Rent the Runway when I did. I thought, I chose that company because I thought it was an interesting idea for a product, and I could do a lot with the technology. Like the technology was kind of a mess when I joined, and I was like, this is a thing I can fix. I'm good at this. And I think, frankly, all of my lucky breaks in my career, almost all of them at least, have been working for women. And that is not to say that female managers are your saving grace by any means. Female managers can be very, very difficult. I'm sure I, as a manager, have been very difficult to work for men and women. But if nothing else, for the most part, the female managers I've worked for and the female leaders I've worked for, at least there's just a little bit less of that inherent, like, well, you're a woman, so you just don't count quite as much feeling that I've gotten from them. And I think that, I think going to Rent the Runway especially, like, I don't know how easy it would have been to become a CTO in a company where everyone around me was male and all the leadership team was male and they did, male bonding things. It was kind of amazing being at a company with so many women in the leadership team and women on the board and having that feeling of, having women around me and women to look up to.
Camille, you mentioned earlier that it's kind of a relief to not be at the CTO position. I guess for those who are maybe like in the audience thinking like, okay, like, do I want to even become a CTO? Like, what's your thought process around that? And what advice do you have for people who are trying to kind of determine if that's the right move for them or if maybe a different role is the best fit?
I mean, like, if you think you want to do it, go for it. Like, it's not a bad thing to go for. You might discover you hate it, but like, you might discover you hate lots of things. And like, if you think you want to be a CTO, I encourage all of you, please go for it. I think what I learned is like, I would do it again. I'm not saying I would never do the CTO job again. It is a hard job for a lot of reasons. You're really, really close to to the exposed outside messiness of a company. You have to deal with the founders and the slings and arrows of just really senior life where every decision is really messy, and that is sometimes I think difficult, especially for engineers who are really used to kind of some of the cleanness of code, to get used to just the messiness of how businesses are actually run and how you actually grow companies. But I would say that if you think you want to do it, please just try to do it. Like, go for it. And if you really want to do it, the easiest way to do it is to get in at a small company, is to co-found something. I mean, that is the path almost everyone who becomes a CTO goes through. It's actually pretty uncommon to be promoted into the job of CTO at a big company. That would be a very, very slow path. And frankly, you see men all the time, they get that VP title or that CTO title and they parlay that into bigger and bigger and bigger companies. Sometimes you don't really understand why. And so the easiest way, if you want to be in those leadership positions, is like, get that leadership title and just sell it and work it for all it's worth.
Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to become a CTO.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's your path? How are you going to get there?
For a long time, I thought that I was going to have to go slow. Last year, someone tried to recruit me to be a VP of Eng at their company, and I was just like, no, I'm not ready for that. I wouldn't do that to a team. And this year, I'm just like, come at me with the VP of Eng offers, bring me the CTO offers. I'm ready for it, because a good friend of mine was like, why did you turn that down? And I was like, I wasn't ready for it. They're like, no white dude would say that. They would literally be like, oh yeah, I can do that totally, and have zero skills and be terrible at the job. And so I was like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do that too. And so, I'm just not going to say I'm not ready for it. If a 25-year-old who just graduated from whatever college can be a CTO at a company, then I sure can. So I'm gonna.
What about you? Do you want to be a CTO?
I'm actually more for VP R&D or VP product, more of that. I think maybe the difference, from my experience, is that it's more about people management and less about the technical part. So it's something to consider. I mean, if you want to go for it, but you have to know what it means. And what it means is, at least the VP parts, it's a lot of people management. It's so different from the original job you were trained to do, right? Because it becomes, instead of this, you don't care about anything, you just write your code, you do your things on time, you do your own thing, you suddenly go to messy one-on-ones and hiring and firing and all these things, emotional, and people get emotional in front of you, and you have to, no, seriously, I love it, but it's not for everyone. And I was super ready for it, even if I wasn't sure of my skills as a manager. I was super ready for doing that move, for not just sitting in front of a computer and writing code, but actually for enabling others to write code, multiplying the work we do by supporting all my team and having them move forward. And if you don't do that, you're going to be a bad manager, because if you're going to go and you're going to write code, then something's not moving. Something in the process is going to get stuck, and you wrote your code, so you're all good. No, it's not going to work. So I think that's something to consider before you make that move. It's less about if I'm ready or not, but if I'm ready to say goodbye to that, to my old job.
We are unfortunately out of time, but I would say that the takeaway is, if you want to be a CTO, you can do it, so go for it and do it, right?
Yeah.
It almost looked like you had something else to say.
What?
It almost looked like you had something else to say.
Oh, I was going to say, if you need mentorship or want help, hit me up. I'll answer questions anytime.
Cool. Awesome.
I may be slow, but I will answer.
All right, let's give our panelists a round of applause.
Thank you all for listening.